Welcome in to another edition of the JMU Sports News Podcast. I am Bennett Conlin, joined by Jack Fitzpatrick to talk about the 4-0 Dukes.
They are 4-0, and that is almost as hype as our intro song. Every time I hear that intro song, I just get more and more excited. But the Dukes 4-0. If you had told me that they were 4-0 after the first month of the season, I think I would have thought you were crazy. I really thought they were going to drop one of those road games, not because of lack of ability, but because three road games to start a season like that is very hard. And Cignetti mentioned it countless times. I believe they're the only FBS team to do that this year with no bye in there, maybe, or one of six. I think he said a few.
Yeah, it's not technically true, but he has said that.
He's also said it a few different ways, where I think the first time he said it, it was true, but not a lot of teams do it. Kevin Warner had a great tweet that of all the undefeated teams, they average like one road game so far this season. JMU is the only one that has played three.
They have like a top 20 or 25 like strength of record. They've done a nice job going 4-0. It's impressive for sure. A lot to unpack within that 4-0, but some of us didn't doubt. Some of us in our season prediction, which we split up halfway through, did have them starting 4-0.
Yeah, I'm kind of actually then very glad that you started that first half, because if I had, I would have been like 2-2.
Bunch of losses. I have them losing this weekend though. So
yeah, and I have them winning. Did I have them winning in the preseason though? Maybe not. Exactly. But you know what else is really exciting? The fact that football is back, and Bet Online, it continues to be your number one source for all of your sports wagering info, with all the up-to-minute stats, news, scores, matchup breakdowns, and more. Get the latest game odds, spreads, totals, from professional to college football, all at your fingertips. Bet Online's real-time updates on statistics, news, and odds from week one all the way to the postseason, the college football postseason, the professional football postseason. Bet Online gives you the access to the best football promotions and contests available anywhere online. So head to betonline.ag. You can follow them on Twitter as well, or you can use your mobile device to get in on the action. Remember to use promo code BELIEVE, promo code BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, where the game starts. JMU, a slight home favorite against South Alabama this week. Blake Pace wrote all about it in this week's betting preview.
Yeah, should be a good one. We also got to shout out Three Notched, our favorite people in Three Notched. They've got Minuteman Mondays, Jack, and I read this as it goes across the screen because I never write it down. $3 Minuteman pours. Tuesdays, you get half off on cases at the Valley Collab House. And every Friday, I'm still shocked that they're able to make this happen. First Tap Friday, a new brew weekly.
$3 pours for that new brew as well every Friday. First Tap.
I love Three Notched. Very excited that they're supporting us again this season.
Yeah, and very hyped that they are letting us take up the Valley Collab House's tap room, set up a table, and talk about JMU sports on November 17th at 5 p.m. If you're on Facebook, there is an event created between us and Three Notch. So go there, say that you're interested, say that you're going, say whatever it is. That's where all the information will live about our live podcast coming up later this year in November at Three Notched Valley Collab House. There's a men's basketball game that night, so come get your JMU sports fix at Three Notch. Get a little bit of beer in the system before JMU goes on, I believe. Who do they play that night? App State?
Radford.
Oh, that's Radford. And then they play App State in football the next day. So get a full JMU sports weekend. Check that out over on Facebook. If you search in JMU Sports News Live Podcast, something like that, should pop up. It's also over on our Facebook, JMU Sports News as well. And a awesome word from another one of our fantastic sponsors. Take it away, Third Voice.
There's a reason Christopher William Jewelers has been voted Best of Virginia year after year. It's not just one thing that sets us apart. It's everything. It's the selection, extensive and unmatched, with every engagement ring, loose diamond, and fashion jewelry chosen for quality and brilliance. It's the service. From our diamond experts to our master goldsmith, our team shares a passion for what they do, and it shows. It's the atmosphere, both glamorous and laid back. See for yourself why people can't stop talking about Christopher William Jewelers in Harrisonburg and Weir's Cave.
So here's a question. When they say it's picked for brilliance, do you think it's like an IQ over 150 or like how do they decide that?
I don't know. We would like to learn more about that. Maybe we'll have somebody on. We'll do like a diamond podcast by week next week.
Who knows? We might get a little crazy. And for the podcast listeners, you can't see this, but holding up some JMU sports news merch just dropped. Bennett and I got it. We have a couple t-shirts going out. Excited to see Daniel and Ben with their t-shirts coming out. I also ordered a mug. So I'll be drinking my beer out of a mug next or whenever that eventually comes in. But check out our merch. The link is on my Twitter and the link is on our website, JMU Sports News as well. So that's all the housekeeping stuff out of the way.
Bang. Good stuff.
So what happened this weekend?
JMU defeated Utah State. We have a lot to break down in this game. 45-38. They take a 24-0 lead. Incredible start. Slowly kind of, it wasn't even that slowly. They just kind of sort of choked it away a little bit and then ended up winning late. Had some clutch interceptions. Jordan McLeod made a nice throw to Reggie Brown. The Utah State defensive back said, you know what, I don't feel like tackling today, and just sort of stopped. And then Reggie Brown took it to the house. They found a way to win. Not glamorous. Like Christopher Williams Jewelers, they're glamorous and laid back. I was neither during this game. It didn't feel glamorous, and I was not laid back.
No, you were laid back in the first half, and that's when you texted me. You said, "You can take over Twitter, man. I'm a little tired. I might fall asleep." And then the wheels came off, and then my tweets got more and more sad, angry, upset as I was just slinking into my couch, my blanket over my head more and more. All the lights were off, and I was just in pain watching that game.
They've played 3 FBS games. At multiple points during each of those games, I thought, one, they were going to stomp the opponent, win by double digits. I thought they were going to get blown out and embarrassingly destroyed. I thought they were going to lose by narrow margins. And then the clock hit 0 in all 3, and I was like, what just happened?
This was the biggest win of the season against an FBS school.
Biggest in terms of margin.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry. This is the biggest.
I wanted to
a 1 point
into a take that it was like more for the
program. No. A 1 point win, a 2 point win, and a 7 point win in their 3 FBS games. They've outscored their opponents by only 10. This is the Vikings last season all over again. JMU is going to have one game where they get blown out. They're going to have like a 7-2 record at one point, and they're going to have a negative point differential.
They got outscored, like, I think it was 31-7 over a stretch, and they covered the spread in the game. Like, that's hilarious. That they're a favorite of like 5.5, 6.5, depending on where you're looking. And they end up covering despite just an awful stretch in the middle because they were really good at the beginning and then pretty good at the end. Like the two, I watched some of it back, which I don't know why I was doing that, but I did.
Good for you.
We'll talk about the broadcast a little bit. But they had like 3 stops in the final 5 minutes that all realistically could have been the final stop needed to clinch it. Like they got one in the fourth on the 4th and 18. And I was like, oh my God, they did it. Great. I think Utah State, they had 2 more possessions after that in like the final 4 minutes.
There was a few late fumbles, I believe. I think Latrell Palmer had a rough fumble when it felt like the rushing attack finally had found its rhythm. Yeah. And then all of a sudden he just cops it up, gave Utah State another opportunity. Then I think they picked it. Then after the pick, I think they punted it away. Yeah, it was insane. Like there was no reason that game should have been like that. And I was watching it in a bar at first. I went to an Oktoberfest on Saturday. I'm in a bar watching the beginning of it. I start getting extremely hyped. I think they go up 17-0, and I turn off the game. I'm like, they won. I'll tune in when I get back home.
Yeah.
Second half starts. I'm so excited. I'm like, okay, they let up a couple of points, but man, they're still dominating this game. Then that first drive from Utah State, just like cuts through the JMU secondary like a hot knife through butter. Excuse the cliche, but that's exactly what it was. And I was like, oh no. Here. And then I think the first drive, pass, punt. And then Utah State scored again. And I was like, here we go.
They've outscored teams 73-21 in the first and fourth quarters. And then they've been outscored by 10 in the middle quarters with a negative 18-point differential in the third quarter. So they got to figure that out. Cignetti had said that in the presser this week. They need to figure something out in the third quarter because they've kind of been laying some third quarter eggs. Like the UVA game, they were incredible in the first and fourth. I thought they had a nice start, and the Troy game was kind of just like a level game throughout. I feel like both teams just kind of got theirs whenever they did. But the other two, Utah State and UVA, they were really horrible in the middle of the game.
Yeah, and especially that third quarter, like you said, in the third quarter, the first 4 possessions for JMU against Utah State, it culminated in 3 punts, an interception, and 12 total yards. Their first down did not come until the first play of their 5th drive, which was an 11-yard rush. From there, it was an 8-yard pass, a 4-yard rush, a 6-yard pass, a 7-yard rush, which ended in a fumble. And then up until the Reggie Brown 74-yard touchdown, JMU had 59 total yards of offense.
Yeah, it was like 6 of their 8 second half drives were 3 plays or fewer. The other 2 were 4 and 5, one of which was an 85-yard touchdown drive. Like, so weird. Where it was like 3 and out, fumble, 3 and out. Like, perfect pass to Reggie Brown for a touchdown. And that was the second half. After being perfect offensively in the first half. They had a McLeod interception, but they were incredible in the first half.
Do you want me to bore you with the play calling of the first half? Just go through each play. I won't go through each play, but do you want me to bore you with how dominant it was?
Well, yeah, hit me with something.
54-yard touchdown pass to open up the scoring.
Mm-hmm.
Then a field goal. Felt like they'd gone for it on 4th down earlier in that drive, and then they settled for a field goal from the 2. They won the game, so okay, but kind of interesting. A 1-yard touchdown run, a 3-yard touchdown run, interception, and then a long drive. And by long, I mean 8 plays that was capped off by a 57-yard touchdown pass to go up 31-7. A 1-yard touchdown run to go up 38-14 that was set up by an 18-yard pass. In the first half, they ran 28 plays, 17 passes, 11 rushes for a grand total of 371 yards and 38 points.
It's something.
And then in the second half, they ran 22 plays, a 50-50 split right down the middle, 148 yards. 6 of the 8 drives began with a run.
Yeah, I thought they were so good in the first half about letting McLeod sort of sling it around. In their defense, there were a couple passes in the second half where I was like, that's why Alonzo Barnett won the starting job. So there were a few like Jordan McLeod decisions where it was like, whoa,
yeah,
that didn't make the one interception where he rolled to the side and could have thrown it away. Instead was like basically taking a sack and just flipped it to a Utah State guy was confusing. His fumble wasn't great. Like he made some mistakes, but gosh, when they unleashed the passing game, it's pretty fun.
Yeah, when things are firing on all cylinders, it works. And normally in years past with this JMU team, they can normally run on like the running attack. This year, they really aren't able to. Like typically, at least a little bit, you'd have at least an ability to run and then set up a 3rd and 2 or something. This year, they are averaging probably take out that Bucknell game in the second half of games. I don't know off the top of my head, but I'd imagine about 2 to 3 yards per rush, which is not good. And then on the season, they have a negative EPA in rushes. They are 83rd in the country in EPA per rush. And so what that negative EPA means, if you've listened to this podcast before, you've heard me kind of explain it, but just as a quick explainer, essentially every time they hand off the ball, you can expect negative 0.024 points to be taken off the scoreboard.
And that's what I say to all my buddies when I'm watching. They hand off the
I hate you. I hate you.
Boys, did you see
I hate you. Can you imagine? I hate you.
No, but I think your point is is well taken that they're probably what I guess the EPA in the passing game is more productive, right? They've been more productive in the passing attack. And I think the running backs are good, but I think maybe our biggest gripe is that it feels predictable with the running game.
Well, it's just the fact that in the second half of every FBS game so far, in the second half, they've had 14 drives. Sorry, I'm getting my spreadsheets mixed up. I did a lot of spreadsheet work this week for this podcast. So in the last 2 games, at Utah State, at Troy, they've had 14 drives in the second half combined. 11 of those have been runs.
Right. It just feels a little bit predictable, which tends to be our biggest gripe sometimes, is that they get a little predictable. And at the same time, you're not looking at a JMU team that we're upset about, right? They're 4-0, which is awesome. Like we talked about how like we were surprised that they're 4-0. Some of us called this from the beginning, but no, it's a very
some
incredible.
Of us also called Georgia State to be undefeated, but
yeah, you were on the Georgia State train before most, and you stayed with them after the Rhode Island game. But anyway, I think that like the point isn't that like, oh my God, like you can't run the ball, you're never going to win when they're 4-0. The point is that like they could be 1-3. So like when you're predicting how a team will do the rest of the season, I've seen some JMU fans be like, we could run the table. Not if they keep playing like that. Like they're definitely not going to run the table like that. They're going to go 7-5 or 8-4 because the schedule is hard. I think you got to be more aggressive on 4th downs. You definitely got to vary the play calling a little bit. And if they do that, they could have like a 10-win season because they're 4-0 to start, but they got to make some changes, I think, or like they're going to start losing. You can't expect to win all these 1-possession games. That's not really sustainable.
I agree. And I think a large fix for the defensive issues we've seen so far this season start with the offense. We'll talk about a little bit later about the 3rd down issues and how I believe the 3rd down issues all begin with 1st down. But I think a majority of these issues could be solved if JMU just kept the defense off the field a little bit in the second half, because when you start the second half with punt, fumble, and that was what, 9, 10, 11, 12 plays. And then your defense is just out there again and again and again, got burned, touchdown, just like that. You look up and you're like, holy hell, we got ourselves a game. The defense has been struggling this year to consistently slow down opponents' passing attacks. I don't think that is something we can disagree on. I think almost every JMU fan watches the game and goes, yes, the secondary has struggled this year. But I think a lot of the defensive issues can be solved if the offense can kind of figure out some sort of a more cohesive rhythm rather than relying so heavily on explosive plays, which is what they did against Utah State.
Yeah, they're like one of the 15 worst 3rd down offenses in the country right now in terms of just conversion percentage. So it'd be cool if they stayed on the field a little bit longer. I think that would help. Then they've obviously got some secondary issues. Like the front 6 or 7, right, is very, very good. They're right up there in national leaders and sacks and tackles for loss and rushing defense. But the secondary is getting cooked a little bit. So I think if you can keep some drives together and make it so that the defensive line can stay fresh and generate pressure consistently on the quarterback, that's huge. And then also, right, if you can just like score second half points so that the defense has a little bit of leeway to give up some chunk plays, it makes everything a little bit easier.
Yeah. And the secondary has an all right success rate, but the EPA they allow on a per play basis is 84th in the country. And I know, like you say, when you watch Kalon Black, man, did you guys just see the negative .024 come off the scoreboard? If you pass against JMU, it adds 0.06 points to the scoreboard every single pass, which is insane. You don't see that because they don't go that many decimal points. But like,
right,
if they
but it's there.
Yeah.
It's happening.
What if that, okay, I love advanced stats. I also understand how stupid they sound at times, but like, could you imagine if that's how they played the game?
That'd be hilarious. Just like a point.
Every completion.
They're
like, all right, add 0.06.
But I think they've given up 5 pass plays of it's like 60 plus yards or something. I'll have to pull up whatever it was, but they're giving up chunk plays at an absurd rate where like most other teams aren't giving up that many chunk plays. And I think that's one of their biggest issues is like they might hang in there for a few pass plays, but but it doesn't really matter if like every third pass is a 50, and it's not that level of rate. But it's like if you have every third pass go for 40 plus, that's a problem. They're just giving up way too many huge plays that are either like a short pass and they miss a key tackle, or I think against Utah State a couple of times, they were just cooked deep.
Yeah.
Like the guy's wide open. And I know there's some people who are like, but Kay Hillstead made some nice throws for Utah State, and he did. Some of them, every FBS quarterback is going to make. Like if the dude is uncovered 30 yards downfield, chances are a scholarship player on an FBS team, especially like a Sunbelt team the rest of the way, they're going to hit that throw.
Especially Carter Bradley next week.
Right. He's not going to miss a bunch of like wide open dudes way down. Like you have to have the coverage be more consistent and tighter.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there was that one, I don't know if it was to go down 7 or to tie it, but it was like a 64-yard just go ball where the corner just was burned by like 2 or 3 steps. And even in the UVA game, the game-winning play, that last play of the game where Calandria overthrew it, he was wide open. He had 5 steps on him.
And that's the kind of thing like that will come back to bite JMU against another opponent. Like that's the kind of thing that can happen. At the same time, very cool that they're 4-0.
Very cool.
They're doing some nice stuff. And glad they won because this broadcast was abysmal. I had a fun time watching this.
Okay, let's talk about this broadcast. Let's screw the D-line dominates. D-line dominates segment we are going to have, and let's replace it with Dookies.
Tough start, right? 10 seconds into the broadcast to be like the JMU Dookies, which I thought was like a slight and or joke or fun thing. It appeared maybe they think they are the JMU Dookies based on the rest of the game.
No, not the JMU, the JMYU.
Sorry, excuse me, the JMY.
Where do they get the Y?
What is the Y? We don't know.
What is anyone's Y?
That was tough. They got really upset about weird things. Obviously, the Curt Cignetti phone.
Oh, we got to talk about a whole segment on the phone. Okay, that'll be next.
The phone being taken out was incredible. But like at one point, Jordan McLeod had his zone read touchdown. Nobody was within like 6 yards of the guy at the goal line. And they're like, where's the touchdown signal? Where's the signal? Have you seen the signal? It's like everyone just knows it's a touchdown. So they're going to move to the extra point, man. Like just take a breath. It was a bad broadcast.
They were just like really, and it also probably didn't help that like as this comeback's happening, they're like giddy in the booth,
right.
And they're like the Dookies are struggling, and you're like, all right, man, shut up, like please just call this. And I get it. Utah State pays their paychecks. I understand that like you do have a little bit of bias in your calls. I get that, but like that level of bias needs to be checked. Like. The football SID has to check that. The AD like someone has to be in charge of them and be like, look, guys, you need to tone it down a little bit because that was unacceptable. I'm okay with you being like, if you're the color broadcaster, I think Vadley's done this a few times on accident. It just happens. You're around the team. You're part of the team. You say we, things like that accidentally just kind of slip in and out. I'm okay with that for the most part. If overall you can tell a story about JMU. You've clearly done your research on them, and you don't get actively upset when they score a touchdown, and you don't actively like question the referees, who, by the way, were terrible, and a lot of calls went to benefit you. Don't question the referees and be like, what are they doing? This is Utah State deserves better. No, they don't. You lost to Air Force last week. You lost to JMU this week. Grow up.
It was very, very unprofessional. The whole, like, every time they mentioned Cheese Surratt, they would like go into sort of like a laughing fit to the point where they weren't calling Elijah Surratt by his name. They were like calling him Cheese and Cracker. Like that's super unprofessional. Like
very unprofessional. I will say very funny.
The Cheese and Crackers was reasonably funny if they had brought that up like without any of the other instances. But it was tough. And then they would just get mad about weird things. The camera angles were horrendous.
The field goal camera angles.
Field goal camera angles. You might as well have just like putting the camera in your mouth or something, because like we're not seeing anything. Like, how would I know if he made the kick?
Just put the camera on the referees, if anything, just so I can see the signal, because it was like field level on the line of scrimmage. And I'm just like, okay, he kicked it. And the first time I saw it, I was expecting like a quick cut to then like the broader angle. No, they stayed just like with, and I was like, I don't need this view.
Also pretty wild to laugh about cheese. And then when a kicker named Nimrod misses a kick, we don't get anything. That's bias because that's right there for the taking. That's low hanging fruit that could have been acted upon.
Yeah, that's a name. Also, Cheese Surratt is a nickname.
Right.
Like, his real name's clearly right next to it, where Nimrod's his like biological given last name.
It was just bad. It was really bad. And then they were apoplectic when
what a word. That's
Curt
an SAT word right there.
Thank you, sir. When Curt Cignetti showed a phone, which is just hilarious. He shows phone to the official of a missed replay. I don't know what Cignetti thought would happen there. Like the official would be like, "Let me see the oh shoot, you're right." Like there's no way that would have ended well for JMU, but very hilarious nonetheless. But the announcers were freaking out.
Well, can we talk about that missed call on the fake field goal though?
Yeah, Nimrod with a touchdown.
No, he stepped out by like a full yard.
He was way out of bounds, but counts as a touchdown. Maybe slightly more alarming. My guy Chauncey on the edge there was not able to take down the kicker in space, which that's okay. He looked so fast on that play.
The kicker?
I was like, man, he's got moves. They got to stick him a wildcat.
Oh, they needed to do something. Well, clearly they didn't need to do something. They put up 38 points.
They also then ran later in the game what appeared to be like an intentional fake punt that the announcers said was unintentional. They're like, oh, we bobbled the snap, so we just decided to fake it. Why would that be your reaction? Right? That doesn't make sense. What a weird game. It was one of the weirdest games I've ever watched. I don't think the picture, at least for me, was clear. Like the broadcast was bad. And I also think at times, like the interception at the end by D'Angelo Pons deep end to clinch it was very blurry for me. I don't know if that was anyone else. I could not see what happened.
I couldn't either.
I think that was the broadcast.
I think it was the broadcast, but I was also really, really pleased with how they called that because they didn't say it was like they just went silent. I'm pretty sure.
They just and then kind of
they're just like,
oh,
it's an interception.
McKay Hillstead played his heart out tonight, and I was like, did he
did like he die?
Collapse back there? What do you mean? And then they had Pons running with the ball, and I was like, oh, that checks out for those guys in that broadcast.
Yeah, it was not good. But JMU gets out of Logan, Utah, gets out of that broadcast with a 45-38 win. Let's talk about some overreactions that this game brought upon us from JMU fans. This may have been one of my favorite overreaction corners. This overreaction corner, reminder that you can check out and put your own opinion, put your own overreaction in every single post game. Just check out our Twitter. We tweet the link out at least once post game. So check that out and you can drop it in anonymously. You can put your name on it, do whatever you want to do. But this week's overreaction corner starts off. JMU's 4-0 record is absurdly close to being 1-3, 10-point total margin of victory over the last 3 weeks. I love these close matchups, but can't help but think that JMU is due for some painful losses later in the schedule. Ethan Gardner, gotta say, I didn't realize Bennett would say like the exact same thing.
I think this is well said. On the flip side, you can have seasons, right, where you just go like 5-0 in one possession games. I just don't think they're going to go like 11-0 in one possession game. So at a certain point, like if you're better than a team, and I thought they were legitimately better than Utah State across like most position groups, you kind of would love to have those be double-digit wins that don't come down to like needing 2 interceptions in the final 5 minutes to clinch them. So if they start to play a little better, I still think they can have a year that doesn't have huge painful losses. But yeah, if they trend in this direction, they're going to take some close L's.
Worth mentioning that JMU did dominate that game in every statistical category except for the final score. Next one, our run defense numbers are inflated because of how bad the secondary is. I don't hate this take for the main reason that JMU's defense has some of the least number of runs called against it, but some of the most passes. So I believe there's only 25 rushes a game per called, which is top 15 in the country. And they're like one of the most passed on groups in the country.
Yeah, the run defense is very good, but it helps, right? If your secondary is clearly a worse unit, the other team's just going to go, okay, we're just going to throw the ball. So then if a team throws the ball like 10 out of 12 plays, it's easy to be like, the run defense reminds me a little bit about the Georgia Southern game last year. I think someone asked Isaac Ukwu after, and they're like, "You guys, put in another great run defense performance." He's like, "What? We gave up 600 yards passing though."
So JMU 25 runs are called against it in a game, 38 passes.
Do you think it's going to get? I guess it probably will. Right? I'll answer my own question. But South Alabama and Georgia Southern, there's got to be a crazy pass split the next 2 games, right?
I'll be shocked if South Alabama doesn't try to establish the run.
Okay. What about Georgia Southern? Do you think they go?
I will be shocked if we see Clay Helton call a run.
That'd be so sweet if Clay Helton was like, "I'm just not running."
Next one. There are tons of fans that would gladly take their team at 4-0 right now. This 3-game stretch was as brutal as JMU has had, and they didn't lose. I think leadership deserves a lot of praise for that. Drake.
Yeah.
Guys, I think Flow Sports may be better than the Mountain West Network. Jordan Simmel. Yep.
That was bad.
That was terrible. Colorado versus JMU would be the most exciting WWE style bowl game. Not wrong. You could imagine the championship belt. Curt Cignetti would have cell phones out there. Deion Primetime Sanders would be at the podium saying some wild stuff about how JMU's disrespected them in the Bahamas Bowl and how Deion Sanders remembers playing against Coach Curt Cignetti because somehow Curt Cignetti's probably been connected to Primetime. I think that would be electric.
That's a fun take. It would be a fun game, especially given the fact that Colorado can throw it a little bit. But they can't protect the quarterback. So JMU's defensive line would get there in 2 seconds, but then also guys would be open.
That'd be amazing. And then for every sack, Pat Kuntz would be doing the championship belt on the sideline, hanging up the phone. We might have the worst secondary in the country, and some of those dudes are close friends. Georgia Southern might throw for 600 yards. Football alum.
I don't think it's the worst. I still don't. I'm not entirely sold that they're horrible.
Whoa.
I know that they're not playing well. I don't think they're the worst in the country. I also think
they're one of the worst.
They've made multiple positional changes here. And we'll get into the 2 deep at some point, but it looks like it's going to be Pons and Logan and then Meehan and Thomas, maybe with Q Reed mixing in there. I do think they're making some changes. DJ Barksdale played a decent amount against Utah State. I don't know. I think Georgia Southern's going to throw for a lot of yards, but I also think they're going to find a way to make some improvements here where it doesn't look quite as bad. And I will say they had a couple really nice plays. The Pons interception, Fisher had an interception. And then, was it Reminique? Is that how it's pronounced? I think.
Yeah.
He had a great interception that he immediately fumbled, but it was a great play to intercept a screen pass. So I'm interested with some of the personnel switches, if D'Angelo Pons gets some reps underneath him, if they can look a little bit better in November.
I'm also really interested to see if there's a scheme change where it seems like this secondary is very big play centric. So do you kind of sell out and put these guys in man-to-man? Do you maybe play for those interceptions and try to get those big plays and those turnovers instead of just kind of sitting back and letting guys dink and dunk down the field on you?
Yeah.
This team could easily be 1-3. Not impressed. D-line coach last week, cell phone this week. Cignetti trying to compete with Coach Prime for clicks. Mr. Gritty.
This is obviously, I don't think they're trying to do this for clicks. I actually think it's very beneficial for the program that they're staying in the news cycle, even with dumb things like that.
I agree. I mean, JMU, I think Shane Metlin tweeted out that there's been 6 or 7 million impressions from the discount double check thing and then the phone thing this week, which is insane. Free impressions, hyping up your program in an age of social media. Fantastic. Unloading the clip here. Do you remember last week we had the I miss Everett Withers? This is from, for the record, I do not miss the Withers era. Unloading the clip here. Worst team since Mickey's last season. Worst secondary since Withers last year. Least mobile QB since Matt Lazat. But somehow 4-0 coming off 3 straight away dubs. I got to defend my guy Jordan McLeod here. He is not mobile. I think he just
Cole Johnson.
more mobile than Cole Johnson, has some speed, has some shiftiness. They started calling some RPOs for him, and he was getting into the end zone. 6 total touchdowns. 2 of them came by way of running the ball. They just haven't leaned on him to run it yet. And I think when he does start to decide to tuck it and run more, he may be putting up some really gaudy rushing numbers.
Also, we kind of got, I feel like JMU fans, myself included, sometimes need to adjust to the fact that like the team's not playing FCS teams anymore. So it's like, oh my gosh, why are they giving up these plays? Because they're not playing Towson. Like Utah State, I think they were in a bowl game last year. I think they lost it. But like Hillstead's probably going to be pretty good. Anthony Calandria made some sweet plays against NC State and Maryland for UVA. Like they have played some talented players. And Gunnar Watson, who's probably the worst of those 3 quarterbacks, had the worst game of those 3 against JMU.
Yeah, I mean, JMU is going up against Tom Flacco, the other Flacco, as the best quarterback they ever faced. Davis Cheek was sometimes the best quarterback they faced. And he was coached by Curt Cignetti. He wasn't as good when Cignetti left. Like, your best quarterbacks were missing wide open receivers, and there were plenty of them that they missed. Yeah. JMU will go 500 in conference play due to its appalling secondary and bewildering second half play calling. I mean, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that they go 500 in conference play, but I think that might just be because the Sun Belt East is damn good.
The Sun Belt, I think, is pulling away as the best G5 conference. If you look at something like the advanced metrics, the Sun Belt East is sort of carrying that. I feel like no offense to the West, but the West isn't doing it for me.
The West outside of South Alabama and Troy is bad.
The other part about the West that I think is interesting long-term, and I hadn't pieced this together until watching South Alabama play Central Michigan. Most of those teams, with maybe the exception of like Southern Miss, they're like, and Southern Miss is still in SEC country. They're in SEC country and like clearly not the like place to be on a Saturday in the fall. Like South Alabama's crowd against Central Michigan was very sad. Whereas like Marshall's still kind of a hot ticket. Like West Virginia's not actually that good. Like JMU, like you're going to rather go to a UVA game or Virginia Tech. Like not right now. So I just feel like some of these other ones, App State, maybe UNC is exciting, but I don't think you have a lot of people who are clamoring to become like bandwagon NC State fans. That would just be like sad and heartbreaking. So I feel like you have a lot of the East teams that have loyal fan bases. You're the team that can still get some bandwagon fans, whereas that's so different if you play in, I don't know, Alabama.
Yeah, I agree. Our offensive coordinator needs to figure it out and stop taking the foot off the gas. Our secondary is so bad, it's not even funny, but I think our offense has so much potential. If we just stop playing conservative, all gas, no brakes, go Dukes, Connor. I'll let you take the first go at this because I have a take that I don't know if you'll fully agree with.
My take is that they should go like insane on offense, where it's like we're going to throw the ball a ton. And we are going, like, if it's 4th and 5 or shorter in the opposing territory, we're going. Like, if they did that, I would love to see how it played out over a game because I think it would be decent. They do seem too conservative sometimes.
Okay. I don't think they are conservative.
Okay, this is a good take.
I think their play calling isn't working. And that's a bigger issue. I don't think it's conservativeness. They started the third quarter up big with pass. Incomplete. Something isn't meshing there. There might not be full trust in McLeod. There might be other factors, and I don't think it's conservativeness. I think it's play calling isn't clicking, and to me, that's more worrisome. They are fully reliant on explosive plays. The only play they had over 20 yards in the second half was the Reggie Brown 74-yard touchdown, which was a quick slant that he just happened to take to the house because of bad tackling. It seems like the passing game isn't getting open receivers at a consistent enough clip. It's forcing McLeod to do things that the coaching staff may not like. It's giving him less than stellar opportunities, and pair that in with their willingness, or I guess stubbornness, to run the ball consistently on first down and second down, or at least first down, where they have a sub 50% first down success rate. It's setting up the offense in situations to fail. I don't think it's playing conservatively. I think something's not clicking And I'm very interested to see how they adjust going into South Alabama, because playing at home is much different than playing on the road. And I think we'll see some of these issues kind of fixed.
I also think, I guess in their defense, McLeod has missed some layups. Like a guy will just be open for like an 8-yard gain and he like bounces it to him. Stuff that like Centeo wasn't really missing. Cole Johnson wasn't really missing. Didn't like, you know what I mean? Like some of the last quarterbacks were hitting a lot of those.
Also worth mentioning that McLeod is returning from like a broken knee and ankle, hasn't played in 2 years, and didn't get first team reps all fall camp.
Possibly some lingering rust.
Yes. Who do I contact at JMU about paying my medical bills after the heart attack this team causes? Glad to leave with a win. Go Dukes, Chelsea. I thought that was a nice one to finish this out on.
That is really nice. What I've decided to do and sort of just come to grips with is once they start losing a lead or playing poorly, I just tell myself that they have lost.
Yeah, I get those texts.
Lost, it's over. And then I just tell myself it's over. And then in the end, when they win, it's like a huge emotional lift.
How about this? How about we stop texting me that, because it brings me so much anger.
You always get sad. I'll be like, this third quarter. I'm like, well, that was nice. Fun game.
Well, you're a Lions fan. You've experienced a lot of loss in your life. I'm a Seahawks fan. I'm used to winning.
You're not used to, no, you are. You are very accustomed to pass run conversations. It's just usually the other way, right? Too much pass.
No. Seahawks?
Well, if they're at the goal line, so to speak.
All right. You shoehorned that in so hard. Okay. Before we get into everything on JMU versus South Alabama, I do want to talk a little bit about first down success rate and things of that sort, because I like your smile. Is it because we just went really big?
He went big. It feels like it's like, everybody, if you don't love numbers and you don't want to hear this lesson, tune out for 5 minutes.
Well, okay. So JMU's issues are third downs, right?
Oh yeah.
They rank in the bottom 15 in the nation in third downs. So Brent Venables, the head coach of Oklahoma, went on a radio show and he had a really good take, and it led me down a rabbit hole that 3 hours later I had my numbers. But essentially what Brent Venables said was, in today's game, third downs don't matter. It's all about what you're doing on first down. Are you setting up the team for success on first downs? First and 10, P and 10 is what he called it, which I guess is just the first drive of the game. Coach terms are weird sometimes. So JMU offensively in UVA, Troy, and Utah State has a 59% success rate on first down when they pass the ball. Can you guess what they have when they run the ball?
42.
49%. So a little better.
Not terrible.
Not terrible, but not great either. It's under 50%. So if you ran it 4 times, 2 of them would be failures. They have an overall success rate of 53.32%. And then on defense, do you want a funny stat? I texted you this stat because it was absolutely hilarious. On first down, JMU's defense was successful 100% of the time against UVA runs.
That is really funny.
And UVA had, let's see how many first downs they had. UVA had, sorry, give me one moment. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 24. 24 first downs in that game. 11 of them were runs. None of them went for more than 5 yards.
Shout out to Des Kitchings for handing JMU a win.
That's insane. But JMU on defense, they have a 79.76% success rate against the run. And I think teams are realizing that because they have a 51% success rate against the pass on first down. But that's not really the discussion we're having right now. The discussion is that they've had 48 successful plays this season on first down, or I guess the last 3 games, and passing is by far the better of the two.
Yeah, I'd like to see more first down passes. I think it makes sense. McLeod's missing some of them, but when he does hit them, I feel like they're getting a lot of things going. And I also feel like they're starting to figure out maybe how to use the receivers more. I will say I was really impressed with that against Utah State. They got Dollison involved. He had a long touchdown catch. Ymir Knight had a few catches, and I feel like they've kind of leaned into the fact that Elijah Surratt makes sense as a starting receiver, and then Hudson coming off the bench and spot duty is what makes the most sense for the entire offense.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. I just wanted to talk about success right there for a second because I think it all starts there. Also, 57% of their first downs this season have been runs.
Like their first down play calls?
Yeah.
It just feels too predictable. And I feel like we talked about this last week, right? When you mix it up a little, then the running game gets going. Also, they do have one running back who has, I think, a positive EPA per play, Tyson Lawton, who is banged up. We don't know his status because he got knocked out, I guess, in the first quarter or second quarter against Utah State.
After like 3 runs of 15 yards or more.
He's really good. So if they don't have him, it would be even more reason to throw it, especially with how good Kalon Black has been as a receiver. But what do I know, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're not coaches. What do we know? We just play Madden at home.
All I know is based off of the horrible camera angles that I saw and not attending any practices, you just got to let McLeod sling it.
All right. It's time for this week's News or Snooze. Bennett will give me 3 quotes or storylines from this past week, and I'll say if they're newsworthy or snooze-worthy. Bennett, are you ready?
I am. Are you?
No, but let's do it.
Okay, first one. So some context. Nick Kidwell, arguably JMU's best player, best offensive lineman, is out for the season.
Awesome.
His left leg, I believe, got rolled up on the first play of the game. Kind of hard to see in the broadcast. The broadcast, of course, didn't mention it. Anyway, this quote is from Curt Cignetti. Nick really had emerged as the leader of the team, and he was a good player. He'd been here a long time. The question that I have for you, is it newsworthy? Obviously, Kidwell being out is newsworthy. But is him as a leader not being on the field newsworthy? Or is it snooze in the sense that he's still like going to be around the team?
It'll be interesting to see if he continues to travel with the team and if he chooses to like stick it out that way. Shane Metlin had an article today. I believe he was saying how Kidwell was still instrumental on the sidelines during that Utah State game. So if he's not there, I think that will be pretty big. He's kind of, and I hate to use this cliche, 2 cliches in one podcast is never good, but he was like a coach on the field. He is old. He is kind of that grizzled offensive lineman who's been there. He's been through it all. And to lose that, I think it is a considerable blow. Then on the flip side, this is a very experienced offensive line. The guys stepping up for him are very capable guys. I don't think the offensive line play from a on the field standpoint is going to take much of a step back. It is going to take a step back, but I don't think it'll be necessarily like a massive, massive blow, but kind of that leadership. Yeah. And kind of being that calming force in the huddle may impact him.
And not really a September storyline, but interesting to follow in general. He could use a medical hardship waiver, saying that he was saying could do that to come back to JMU. He's also very good and could do that and try to play like his final year on like an NIL deal or a Power 5. Don't know how that'll go, but interesting nonetheless. All right. Was that news or snooze? What did you decide?
News.
I blacked out. Okay.
Sorry, news.
Number 2. This one's not a quote, but I was interested in this sort of storyline. The 2 deep, right? The depth chart released at the beginning of the week had linebackers Jalen Walker and Torres Jones listed as starters, even though they haven't played the last couple of weeks. It has since been shifted to have them as backups. I've never seen a depth chart midweek shift from the Dukes. I check it like pretty much daily just out of boredom.
Well, can we talk about the underlying, like what this means? It means that Cignetti released 1 2 deep to the media, knowing we were going to eat it up and like completely go deep into it, put our claws into it and enjoy every moment. I don't know if he accounted for Bennett being an absolute sicko.
I'm sure there are other sickos who saw this.
No, I don't know if everyone's going onto the website, clicking the game notes link, scrolling to page 4, and then looking at it. I don't know if they're doing that or just referencing the tweets and the pictures that everyone has been posting.
True.
So you're an absolute sicko for figuring this out.
Thank you.
But it's also like so weird that Cignetti launched it, knowing that the media and everyone was going to eat it up, put their claws into it, tweet it everywhere, absolutely overanalyze it. And then just quietly a different 2 deep is posted to the website. with Trent Hendrick and Aiden Fisher listed as the starters and Torres Jones and Jalen Walker listed as the backups. Oh, and by the way, Latrell Palmer is now on this 2 deep. He was not included in the last 2 deep. This is newsworthy. I think it means that Walker and Jones may be a little bit closer to returning in a weird way, and they may actually dress, but I think Fisher and Hendrick will get the start and get 95% of snaps.
Fisher's been awesome. Hendrick's stepped up.
Fisher has been
he's a stud. Really?
Yes.
All right.
Fisher might be, if Walker and Jones return this year, Fisher can't come off the field.
Very hard to take him off the field. All right. Third one here. This is a quote from Curt Cignetti, who was talking about, I guess, the weird lead changes in the last few games. He says, you play a Power 5 team, there are going to be ebbs and flows in that game. You play a team like Troy on the road who won the conference championship, there are going to be ebbs and flow in that game. And obviously Saturday. It was reminding me of the Sam Houston game quite a bit at one point.
What?
I didn't like that. You don't mention that game. You can't mention the Sam Houston game.
But also you say that you play Power 5 team, there are going to be ebbs and flows. You play Troy, there's going to be ebbs and flows. You play an FBS game, there's going to be ebbs and flows. Remember that FCS game we played?
Some ebbs and flows in that one as well. It was like one good ebb and then a flow. Bad.
But also that I feel like there's ebbs and flows in every. And yes, there are ebbs and flows in every football game. There is momentum swings from both sides. If you believe in momentum, if you don't believe in momentum, there is ebbs and flows. The weird thing to me, though, is in a lot of big games, there tends to be ebbs and flows where the other team flows longer than JMU ebbs. And they come away with wins. So can you question it all that much? Maybe a little bit. But man, do these big games really have some intense ebbs and intenser flows.
Some of it, I think Cignetti's a great coach. Like, I love him at JMU. He's candid. He's leading them to a ton of wins. He's been an unbelievable coach throughout his career. Some of it feels like a little cop-outy, where it's like, that's, you had to know that against Utah State, it was going to have ebbs and flows.
You were up 27. Win by 14.
You go up 24-zip, right? You're dominating the game. It's hard to say that, like, you should just come out flat in the third quarter and there should be ebbs and flows. Like, it feels like one where I feel like if it's worded differently, where it's like, no, we kind of expect to, like, stomp them, and we didn't. I don't know. Maybe it sends a little message to the team that, like, it's different because, like, if you get up and it's like, oh, there are going to be ebbs and flows. As a player, are you, like, just sort of waiting for the other team to have their ebb or their flow? Like, I don't know. It just seems like a weird... To me, it was a little bit strange, at least in terms of, I get what he's saying. We're playing good teams, like they're going to get theirs. But Utah State, I don't think is as good as the other two teams.
But also, they got theirs by outscoring you 31-7.
Yeah, it's a little different than they got theirs and went on a 14-zip run. It's like, no, they were killing you in the middle of the game. But maybe some fatigue at that point. Third game of a 3-game road trip, second half.
Yeah, that's tough. Newsworthy.
There you go. A lot of news this week then.
All right. So that brings us to the lower third I'm looking for. This week's 3-notched weekly preview. South Alabama comes to Bridgeforth after about a month away from the Valley. JMU finally returns, and South Alabama, they're coming in off of a home loss to Central Michigan, a little bit of a fluky game. But Central Michigan out of the MAC goes into South Alabama's house and takes down the Jaguars. Kane Womack, the head coach, he's in his third season, his 17-12 record. The Jaguars, they had 4 first-place votes in the West in the preseason poll and arguably was the best team last year coming out of the Sun Belt West. I would say they were better than Troy, but Troy, the rightful champions. Jaguars did dominate a Power 5 school just 2 weeks ago at their place, a 33-7 win against Oklahoma State, where they kind of destroyed them on the ground. I believe they had 243 rushing yards, which is really, really impressive. The Jaguars' offensive rushing attack is one of the best in the nation. They nearly won at UCLA last season as well, and they have one of the best quarterbacks in the Sun Belt who knows how to win on the road. What does JMU have to do to win?
Secondary, again, right? Secondary is probably going to step up and have a nice game. Callan Lacey, a receiver for them, is probably the most dangerous receiver in the Sun Belt. He's at least up there. Really good going deep, can make guys miss in the open field. Just an elite receiver. Carter Bradley, a really good quarterback. Their offense is definitely scary. Defensively, I think they were kind of expecting to be better than they've been through 4 games. So I would anticipate at some point the Jaguars play more consistent defense. And then sort of the other factor I would consider here is the home crowd. If JMU can get a boost from the home crowd, I think that maybe could be the difference in a game that's expected to be pretty tight, but it should be a challenge nonetheless.
Yeah, I wrote that down too, that South Alabama had one of the best, if not the best defense at the end of the year in the Sun Belt. And now this year, they were getting absolutely shredded against the pass. Those numbers a little inflated because of what Tulane did to them. But it is a little like concerning that Tulane was able to just like absolutely slice them open. They actually rank worse against the pass than JMU does against the pass. South Alabama, they allow 0.21 EPA per play, which is 120th in the nation out of 132 schools. JMU, for comparison, and we all complain about JMU's pass defense. 0.06 allowed on a per play basis, which is 84th in the nation. JMU's strength is passing it. So kind of like what I was talking about earlier, how I don't think they're conservative. I think things just haven't clicked. This is a game where it needs to click. This is a game where you have a clear advantage, where your team, EPA per play, EPA per game, success rate, all of that in the passing game, all of those metrics tell you should be able to pass the ball extremely well. Jordan McLeod, according to a few statistical categories, is a better quarterback than Carter Bradley. He's a more efficient quarterback than Carter Bradley. JMU has the better receiver. This might be like a heavyweight offensive battle, though, because South Alabama can also pass it at a pretty solid rate.
That's what it feels like, right? It's like, can your quarterback play well and can your secondary play well? And if you go like 2 for 2, you probably win the game.
Well, I really think South Alabama, because they have one of the best rushing attacks in the entire nation, is going to be a little hell-bent on establishing the run. Their running back, LaDamian Webb, has 52 carries this season, 346 yards, and 6 touchdowns in 4 games. Really solid stuff. I think they're really going to lean on him. He has a 44% success rate, which is very solid, and he averages 12.68 EPA this season.
They got some guys. Should be a good one.
I think this is going to be a very good game. How important, though, is it that JMU's returning home? How do you think that will play into this game?
Seems like a huge bump for him, right? I would think, like, you don't have to travel is one, and then obviously you've got thousands of people who actually want you to succeed compared to previous weeks, or in the Troy case, hundreds of people who didn't want you to succeed. But and then at the end of the UVA game, I guess everyone did want to succeed. But I think they'll play well in front of the home crowd. I think it'll be a nice crowd. The weather seems like it should be fine. It'll be good to finally get home, I think, for the team.
Yeah. How did the Dukes stack up? We just kind of touched on it.
Win,
but...
right? Does coming home mean that you're the winning team? Because South Alabama's pretty good on the road.
They're scary. That's why I mentioned they went to UCLA and essentially nearly won. They went to Oklahoma State and took it to a Big 12 team. But JMU is also like really good at home. Like,
it feels pretty. You mentioned the how does it stack up? It feels very evenly matched with like JMU's good at home. South Alabama's had some nice road successes. Like, I don't know, both passing attacks feel like they probably have a little bit of an edge. It seems like a super, at least for the most part, even matchup, which sometimes you expect those and one team ends up like jumping on the other. So I'm fascinated to see how it plays out. If JMU can get it and get to 5-0 going into the bye week, I mean, that's an unbelievable start to the season.
You got to rank the Dukes.
Do you, though?
Yes.
You would rank them? Would you rank them now?
Yeah, I'd put him at 25.
No.
But that's bias. That is 100% bias. You were asking me if I would rank the Dukes at an Yes, of course I would. I also understand that as bias. I also think that next week, if they are 5-0 with a win against South Alabama, I think you got to rank them.
What about Liberty?
Fuck them. Excuse my French. So sorry. That just comes out. My bad. Huh.
Are they going to win?
Yes, they are going to win. Do you want to just do the Sunbelt pick'em now?
Sorry, I keep just firing stuff at you when you're putting lower thirds up.
Look, I'm just trying to get this thing going. I'm trying to make the live stream look
I'm trying to get it into the house.
What are the keys? They're gonna win. What is it? Is it good that they're returning home? I don't know. Are they gonna win?
That's all that matters, man. We're talking a lot of nonsense. It's not about the film. It's not about EPA. It's about putting on the pad. It's not about the clicks, right? Does that O mean something to you? Because it means something to me, Jack. So I'll just leave it there.
Okay. Do you want to go into the Sunbelt Weekly Pick'em?
Yeah, we can do the Sunbelt picks.
Don't sound.
I still have a 1-game lead on you.
You have a 1-game lead on me, but
because you pick only one different game and then you pick all the same games. As you pick second the whole time, and then you're like, oh my god, I came back.
Do you want me to pick first this week?
Yeah, I would like you to pick first this week.
Okay, I will pick first. So this week, Sunbelt Weekly Pick'em, Bennett brings a 40-9 record into it. I bring a 39-10 record into it. The only pick we differed on last week was Georgia State and Coastal Carolina. Georgia State jumped up to number 3 in my power rankings after that amazing win. And with that amazing win from the Panthers, I get 1 game closer to Bennett in terms of our Sunbelt Weekly Pick'em. So this week, we're starting things off with ODU at Marshall. Wouldn't it be one of the funniest things in the world if ODU went into Huntington, West Virginia and pulled out this win?
It would be.
It's not going to happen, but Marshall will win. But that would be hilarious.
Going with Marshall here, I could see this one being much closer than the 14-point spread.
I agree, because while Marshall is number 1 in my Sunbelt power rankings that you can check out over at jmusportsnews.com, they do have some offensive questions. If there is one kryptonite to this team, it's a bad offense. But their defense is just so good and they are so well coached that it seems like it doesn't matter. But if this is like a 24, like if Marshall can only get to like 17 or 24 points, ODU may have a legit chance at just mucking it up enough.
Yeah, I could see it being a very mucky game.
Louisiana, Minnesota. Minnesota, sorry.
Yeah, Minnesota choked last week against Northwestern, which was an embarrassing loss, but still Minnesota.
Yeah, but Louisiana's not very good either.
I don't think so.
This is a fun game. Arkansas State, UMass. This is a sickos game. Yeah. I'm going to go Arkansas State. I think they finally got their offensive woes fixed through the first 8 quarters of the season. I think they were outscored like 100-3, something insane like that. They put up 44 against Southern Miss. So I think Arkansas State may have found something offensively. Give me the Red Wolves.
I'm taking UMass here.
Okay.
I think UMass finds a way to get it done.
It is in Amherst, so worth noting. Coastal at Georgia Southern.
I might be all in on Georgia Southern now.
So Georgia Southern coming off of a win against Ball State, where they allowed Ball State to only score 3 points. They held them in Muncie, Indiana, to no touchdowns. This is a team that I've been saying it. I think Bennett's been saying it. Offensively, they're the best in the conference. Defensively is where they're going to lose a lot of games this season. If they can recreate at least half of what they were able to do against Ball State, Georgia Southern is a real threat to win the East. And I don't think Coastal is actually that good.
That's probably fair.
Troy at Georgia State. You already know who I'm going with.
Yeah. Man, this is a tough one. This is a really tough one.
It's in Georgia State. They aren't known to have a good home field advantage, though.
Oh, gosh. This is a tough game. I'm gonna take Georgia State. I think they're for real in a scary way.
Darren Granger, one of the best quarterbacks in the entire league.
Yeah.
Marcus Carroll is averaging 5.2 yards per carry and 2 touchdowns a game.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, Texas State at Southern Miss.
Southern Miss just lost to Arkansas State. They're going to beat Texas State. I need to see a little more from the party in the end zone boys before I believe it.
Whoa!
Yes.
No, this is all Texas State. Southern Miss. Have you seen the vibes of Southern Miss fans?
Probably pretty bad.
Yeah, they are absolutely terrible. And that means the vibes on this team are bad. Frank Gore Jr. can't do anything to reignite this Southern Miss school. Texas State is going to win in blowout fashion.
Okay.
App State, ULM.
App State in this one, they could sort of like a JMU. They could be 4-0 with wins over UNC and Wyoming. Instead, they have 2 heartbreaking losses in those and are 2-2. I still think they're one of the best teams in the league, and I think they beat a crappy ULM team.
Yeah, it's a good thing those 2 losses for App State came in non-conference because they are still right in the mix of it in the standing. So it really doesn't matter all that much. I'm right there with you, App State. I'm very interested to see the quarterback situation when Ryan, I believe his name is Ryan Berger.
Yeah.
When he comes back from injury.
I like Aguilar, but we'll see what they do.
Because I think Aguilar has been able to move the offense a lot better than Berger was against Gardner-Webb. South Alabama, they travel to Harrisonburg, a noon kick on ESPNU. Who do you got, Jaguars or Dukes? This is a big moment for you, Bennett.
I had South Alabama 31-24 in the preseason predictions, and I'm sticking with it.
Wow, really?
Yeah, it's some of it's an emotional hedge, but I don't know. Like, there's so many positives that JMU's had the last 3 weeks, but there's also a bunch of negatives. I feel like South Alabama, after a really disappointing loss to Central Michigan, where I thought they were the better team, is going to be fired up, and they play well on the road. It just feels like a spot where they're going to maybe put themselves right back in that Sunbelt West driver's seat.
Okay. So after not scoring 40 points through the first 3 weeks of the season, the Dukes scored 45 last week. I believe they keep that going with a 42-38 win over South Alabama this week. I think we will see knockout blows from each team through the passing attack, and I think both secondaries will get a few big plays. I think JMU comes up with one more interception or forced fumble to seal the game late, very similar to how they did against Utah State.
You see the total for this game?
What is it?
Like 49.5 at some. Doesn't that seem very low?
Yeah, it does. What would you put it at though? Like 60s? Yeah, I mean, both teams are going to probably hit 30.
I would do like mid 50s or something, but it's one where it's like, is there a little something out there, a little information that I don't realize? Like, is this going to end up being a 24-17? The defenses look the way we thought maybe they would in the preseason.
I mean, Troy and JMU were in a 16-14 game. So, like, JMU's defense has shown that it can hold an opponent to only 2 touchdowns. But
I don't know. If the secondary steps up, it could really change the outlook for JMU pretty dramatically if they play well in this game.
I mean, even if they just play like a half a step better.
Adequately, yeah.
It'd be insane. Do you want to talk a little bit like what's happening around the Sun Belt? You put that in the outline, so I don't know if you want to talk a little around the Sun Belt.
I put that in, and then we kind of hit on it decently during the pick. I was just saying the East playing at a really high level, and I think it's kind of hard to overstate how up in the air the East is. Like, I could convince myself that everyone other than Old Dominion is going to win the East.
Yeah, I mean, again, I will shamelessly plug my power rankings here. So in the first 8 of the power rankings out of 14, 6 of them are Sunbelt East teams. Marshall, JMU, Georgia State are 1, 2, 3. And then Southern, App State, and Coastal are 6, 7, 8.
It's fascinating.
And I think the gap between 8 with Coastal and 9 with Texas State is quite large.
Yeah, the West, I'm still workshopping this, but I think I just don't even care about the West. There's some good teams. I like South Alabama. I like Troy. Southern Miss has like good fans and stuff. But man, if you told me like, oh, the West drifted out to the ocean and now they're on an island and the Sun Belt's only going to be the East, I'd be like, cool. I don't care about there's no emotional attachment to South Alabama for me. The East, they have those regional rivalries that I like, right? Some of these teams aren't in the middle of SEC country, so their fans actually care, and it's not like their 4th favorite college team. Just
JMU
out on the West.
JMU is some Harrisonburg's people 4th favorite college team behind Bridgewater, Virginia Tech, and UVA.
But it's not quite as much as like there's not like a Louisiana. Like if you're in Louisiana, you're a LSU fan. Like no one's joining the Louisiana bandwagon.
No, I 100, and I think you hit it really well earlier. Like the East is more capable of pulling bandwagon fans from other Power 5 schools, where the West is like entrenched in SEC country, and it's like Yeah, South Alabama's not pulling anyone from Auburn or Alabama.
That's what stands
Southern
out.
Miss isn't pulling anyone from Ole Miss or Mississippi State.
And they've got some good football teams, right? So they're playing decent football, but it just feels like the East, like their future to me is way more exciting than the West. So just putting that out there.
So give all of the Sun Belt West teams to Conference USA is what Bennett is saying.
Yeah, I'd like that. No, because it would strengthen them too much. So maybe you just give
That's
them
a great point, actually.
Just give them Arkansas State and keep Troy and South Alabama, and then the other teams can go out to the FCS. I don't know.
Damn, you are really
figure it out. If South Alabama is going to beat JMU by like 30 this weekend, I'm just going to have to like talk about the West for an hour next week.
Yeah. What's more likely? I'm going to give you 3 options. You tell me which one's more likely, and then we'll hit on some quick stuff at the end and then move on. JMU to win a close one.
Mm-hmm.
JMU to lose in a blowout, or South Alabama. I guess I need 4.
Is it both of them close one and both of them blowout?
Yes.
Okay. I think, well, I'm sticking with South Alabama close one. I think it'll be a close one either way. If one team was to blow out the other team, I think JMU would blow out South Alabama. Like there's a chance that South Alabama's defense just isn't that good, and they're still like dead set on running the ball, like you were saying. If they do that and their secondary struggles again and they're on the road, like I could see it spiraling at some point. I just feel like they got some dogs on offense.
Here's a take I'm still workshopping, so
Sure.
Still in the preliminary stage. South Alabama beating Oklahoma State by running for over 240 yards on them was actually the worst thing possible for this JMU game because they think they can run the ball well.
I'm going to be interested to see if they abandon it or when they abandon it. Utah State late in that game was starting to get some runs going though. So
well, I think at a certain point JMU is like, okay, we can't rush 5. Okay, we have to bring in an extra okay, we have to like tell Jalen Green or Kamara to like not rush as hard up the field and maybe have to help it. Like, I think late in games, Jamie's kind of like, what can we do to help this secondary? And that's when teams are like, let's run it.
Can't wait for this game though. It should be an absolute battle.
In other JMU sports news, a lot of golf stuff.
Men's golf playing well. Women's golf playing well. Men's soccer, I think they've lost 3 in a row, so they're fizzling a little bit after a hot start.
Yeah.
Women's field hockey, we have to put on some sort of alert, but women's soccer is playing well.
Women's soccer is up. I think they're the 2nd or 3rd best team in the RPI right now.
That's
in the Sun Belt.
Oh, I was like, that's crazy.
Wow, they're number 3 in the RPI. Yeah, sorry, definitely should.
Whatever they are.
Workshop that a little bit better. And Sophie Davis was the Sun Belt Defensive Player of the Week for volleyball. I believe she also set like the blocks record or something insane.
She's great. Yeah,
she's very good. Lauren Steinbrecher, I think, also just hit a massive milestone. As I can't remember, it was wins. It was wins, but I didn't want to say the wrong number.
Let me try to find it.
Who can find it first?
250.
Thank you. I was thinking 250, but in my head, I also had 300. And I didn't want to say the wrong number.
I think we should make that a bit, though, that we start doing when people have like historic achievements and they're like, they just made history. Let me pause for a while. Don't tell anybody what it is.
Well, anything else you got to add before we get up on out of here?
I want to put field hockey on alert. They're 2-7. So just put them on alert. I don't know what that means right now, but maybe next week during the bye week, there's some sort of alert that I'm putting out.
Okay. Sure.
We're on alert.
Oh, real quick. Did you see QB Spotlight's tweet today? Our friend Stephen Hamner. Did you see his tweet? For those who haven't seen the tweet, it was a very great insight into this quarterback matchup between Carter Bradley and Jordan McLeod. I'm pulling up the stats now. Another thing. Did you see the tweet? Yeah, awesome. Okay, that's all we need to talk about for this. Jordan McLeod, he's better when he's blitzed. He's 29 of 41 for 438 yards and 4 touchdowns. When he's not blitzed, 37 of 60, 450, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions.
Here's a question for you. If you're JMU, do you put a guy in the slot and have that guy turn around and then blitz him?
Just Phoenix
a simulated blitzer.
Carter Bradley, 33 of his 69 completions have been behind the line of scrimmage, meaning he gets the ball out very quickly. I don't have ADOT information, average depth of target or air yard information, but I got to imagine Carter Bradley's like in the bottom of the league. But it also worries me a lot that a lot of his passes are quick because JMU has shown that's where they struggle. Well, they struggle against everything equally, but they struggle against that a lot too.
They were throwing some junk against Central Michigan, like a lot of behind this line of scrimmage, at the line of scrimmage crap. So we'll see if they keep doing that. I feel like JMU's had a few times this year where they busted in on some screens. #defend, Chauncey Logan a couple times. So maybe they'll just run screens.
And run it, and JMU wins. I think JMU actually, as we've talked about it more, JMU blows them out. I think JMU wins. I'm so confident in this game. I'm so excited. I think JMU's going to throw for 350 yards, 4 touchdowns, put on another 2 in the end zone.
That cracks me up because it's like they did that against Utah State and they still didn't blow them out.
All right. For Bennett Conlon, my name is Jack Fitzpatrick. Thank you so much for tuning into the JMU Sports News Podcast presented by Bet Online. Wherever you listen to the podcast, be sure to like, rate, and subscribe so you never miss out on any of the JMU Sports News stuff coming at you. Check us out on YouTube, JMU Sports News, and Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all of the socials. We are there. Until next week, see ya.